This is things I wish I could say in Sunday school. I want to share some thoughts and ideas that are different than what we usually hear. My goal is to be really honest rather than inherently faith-promoting. I hope these ideas may spark some interesting discussions with your friends, families, or classes. Please enjoy. This is the lesson for May 6th through 12th, Mosiah chapters 7 through 10. Today's topics are prophet, seer, or revelator, and admitting mistakes. I apologize for posting this late. I was in Boston this last weekend for a close friend's funeral, and I'm behind. These chapters have a lot of narrative in them, not a lot of deep ideas. I'm going to start today by reading Mosiah chapter 8, verse 16. And Ammon said that a seer is a revelator and a prophet also, and a gift which is greater can no man have, except he should possess the power of God, which no man can, yet a man may have great power given him from God. Many times in Sunday school, we would parse out the subtle differences between these titles. Now, I don't think it matters at all. Whether a message is good or godly matters. But I don't feel like the messenger matters much or maybe at all. So what are the effects of assigning titles like prophet, seer, or revelator? One of the major issues is that it only applies to men. More than half of our audience in the church are women, and these titles in the church only apply to men. In the Bible, there are prophetesses, Huldah, Miriam, Deborah, and Anna, and others. These conversations in Sunday school often really bore women because they feel like they don't apply to them at all. The misogyny of the conversations reflects a huge issue in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that women don't matter and are only there to prop up men and have babies. Another primary effect of assigning titles like prophet, seer, or revelator is a huge amount of deference given to the person. I'm of the opinion that you should not trust what a prophet says without really considering it for yourself. But many messages in the church are that you should trust the prophet even if it leads you down a wrong path. You'll still be blessed for your obedience. That's incorrect. We have personal responsibility for our own choices. Following bad counsel isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. Even though this is taught repeatedly in the church and often in our homes, if the prophet leads you astray and you sin, you are responsible for that sin. Think about the second article of faith. Men are responsible for their own sins and not for Adam's transgression. We are responsible for our own choices, even if that choice is following the prophet. I don't feel like I should give deference to any church leaders. I need to decide what I believe is actually true or good in their message and make my own choices. That's why we are here on earth, to learn for ourselves and choose our own path. It often feels like Latter-day Prophets and Book of Mormon prophets want us to blindly follow them, very similar to Lucifer's plan for mortality. So if the framework is that we need to weigh out all the messages that we hear to determine what is actually true or good for us, then do the titles prophet, seer, or revelator really matter? And my opinion is no. Their position in church hierarchy matters for administrative purposes and decision-making in the institution. It is, after all, a massively, technically nonprofit corporation. But the truth in the messages is what really matters to me. I still have to decide what ideas are godly and what ideas are not, what applies to my life and what doesn't. I can comfortably dissent from the prophet when I do it from a place of integrity. His titles don't matter. My own relationship with my heavenly parents is what matters. Now I'm going to discuss leaders admitting mistakes. The manual says Zeniff admitted that his mistakes had put his people in a difficult situation. The manual doesn't go into this idea, but I was drawn to the idea of leaders admitting mistakes. Zeniff was a scout in the first group of Nephites wanting to repossess the land of Nephi. He argued for not battling the Lamanites, but the leader wanted to battle them. This contention caused bloodshed within their ranks, and they retreated back to Zarahemla. Then Zeniff said he was overzealous to possess the land, so he gathered another group. They suffered in the wilderness, and eventually they negotiated with the king of the Lamanites to possess the land. Zeniff didn't realize that the king of the Lamanites was only allowing them the land so Zeniff's people could be industrious, and then the Lamanites would take it back from them years later. It's not super clear what exactly Zeniff thought his mistakes were, but there is a clear sentiment of regret. I personally think his overzealousness is key. He had big dreams, and people followed him, and there was a lot of suffering that came their way. They suffered famine in the wilderness, and a lot of people died in the first internal skirmish, and then again when the Lamanites tried to take back the land of Nephi. He was so focused on his goal that he didn't appreciate fully the consequences others would suffer as a result. Zeniff is only noting this when looking back. I don't think he really admitted mistakes in the moment or shortly after making them. What are the effects of not admitting mistakes? You can delude yourself into minimizing the mistakes in your head. Tell yourself that no one noticed or it doesn't matter. But you will know that you're not being completely honest, and there's a lapse in your integrity. Others will pick up on your deception. People can tell when others aren't completely honest. They won't trust you very much. People who don't readily admit mistakes lie to themselves and say that they cannot admit the mistakes or others will see them as weak or a failure. They're trying to manipulate and manage the perception of themselves to be seen as strong. Frankly, it doesn't work. What are the effects of admitting mistakes? You have to see yourself as imperfect, which is the true and honest way to see ourselves. Admitting mistakes allows you to see clearly areas where you can improve. People who don't admit mistakes usually fail to make meaningful self-improvement. Admitting mistakes is necessary for honesty and your integrity. Other people will trust you more and see you as a better leader if you can admit mistakes readily and make adjustments. We often fear that if we admit mistakes, people will see us as failures and not trust us. But in actuality, when we admit mistakes, people trust us more because we're showing honesty and integrity. Owning your mistakes is a sign of strength. It's hard to do. Often it makes people pause and reevaluate the situation and the part you played in it. Honesty about your missteps creates a safe place for people. They see your introspection and may not agree with you, but are more likely to give you grace as you grow and learn. I'm not particularly good at seeing my mistakes. I'm willing to admit them, but I tend to be wrapped up in my good intentions, and I don't see the negative effects of my actions as easily. I definitely have room for improvement in recognizing and admitting my mistakes. I absolutely believe it'll help me be a better person and bring me closer to God. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. Please share with family and friends. Until next time.